you know me and my cash, and we'll no doubt talk about my 2 rules and
Absolutely.
all these other things I do at some point. But for me, the profit and loss account and the balance sheet can be wrong. It can be manipulated in a lot of different ways, which probably shouldn't talk about too much, but it can be by making different assumptions. But your bank statement is normally correct.
Yes.
The bank don't get it wrong very often. So if you're focused on cash, that's for me is the real important thing, because you can't pay the wages with profit.
Correct.
You can't pay the suppliers with profit, and if you don't pay the staff on a Friday, they don't normally turn up on the Monday. My 2 rules for any business owner, regardless of size or sector, my 2 rules are: Rule 1, focus on cash. Rule 2, don't forget Rule 1. But what a lot of people don't see, and it's the same whether it's it's us or other business owners, they see the nice house, the nice cars, the holidays, these things, but they don't see the Saturday morning shift. They don't see you working at 8 o'clock at night or getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. These things don't just happen unless you're very, very lucky.
Hello and welcome back to the Built Different podcast with your host, Stephen Pettigrew. Today's guest is Craig Alexander Rattray. Now, Craig's a good friend of mine. He has a program called Know Your Numbers. He's a cash flow and finance expert for small business owners and has a lot of great value that he can share with you to help you grow your business, understand your numbers, and have more cash in the business. Now, as always, guys, if you enjoy this type of content, remember to hit subscribe, like and comment, and share it with a friend who might get value. And now let's get into the episode with Craig Alexander Rattray. So Craig, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you on. How are you today?
Thanks, Stephen. Very good. Very good. Looking forward to who knows where we'll end up.
We were chatting beforehand. This could end up in many, many different places, and it's an interesting chat before we started this. It was probably right that we just got into it because some of the good stuff was already coming out. The reason I wanted you on, Craig, we've known each other for a wee while now, and we've got to know each other better in the last few months. I've been on your podcast, which we'll talk about, but you've got so much value to give to people. And again, that's why I wanted you on. You're a cash flow expert, finance expert. You've been a mentor to people, business owners of all different shapes and sizes for many, many years. Somebody that I really respect. And we'll get into all the good stuff, also the podcasting. But the elephant in the room that I wanted to ask you about, I can't believe that you prefer Starbucks over Costa. What's that all about?
To be honest, I'll drink any coffee. I'm not a coffee snob. As I said to Cam earlier, council coffee is fine for me. I much prefer that. I find Starbucks is more accessible at the moment. They're opening lots of outlets like off motorways, and just basically if you're going between meeting to meeting, it's great to just pop in there, grab a coffee, or even just meet someone. We've met in a Starbucks recently as well.
We did.
So don't get me wrong, I was in Costa as well last week, so I don't say I won't go to it. Having said all that, I do prefer the independent cafes. I prefer to support them if I can.
Yeah.
But the ones that are local to me, they're always too busy during the day, so I can never get any work done. And if Starbucks want to send us some free cards for giving them a plug today, then that would be good.
My favourite coffee shop in Glasgow actually is Tinderbox. I think it's great. So shout out to them if they want to send us free coffee. Absolutely. The reason I mentioned the Starbucks thing is you made a post recently on LinkedIn, and it's funny because you provide so much value on your posts, but one of the ones that gets the most comments and virality is one about Costa and Starbucks.
It's one of the things I really detest about LinkedIn, and I will use the detest word. And I was laughing to Steve and my colleague on Know Your Numbers, that you can put a post or a video out about EBITDA or about gross margin, and I can do reasonably well, and then you stick one up about coffee, do you prefer Starbucks or Costa, and boom,
it goes crazy.
It's madness. Yes.
There's no rhyme or reason to it.
It's just social media for you, isn't it?
Well, and that's it. LinkedIn's obviously this kind of business platform, isn't it? But behind it, it's still a social platform, and people want to communicate, and that's we talk about it internally. If you're commenting stuff just to get a reaction, that'll boost your followers, it'll boost your reach and stuff. So LinkedIn's something we'll talk about later because it's an interesting platform that both of us use. So Craig, it'd be helpful for the listeners. I know a lot about you. I'm sure some of the listeners know you already, but for those that don't know you, it'd be great to hear a little bit about your backstory, how you got into what you do now. I know you've been doing it for a long time, but
Stop! Don't keep saying that.
Well, I was going to say you look really good for a 30-year-old, mate. I've got to say. So a wee bit of backstory would be really helpful.
Okay. From where childhood sort of stuff you
childhood,
want?
Was there any kind of entrepreneurial traits when you were growing up that nothing at all?
None whatsoever.
Right,
I was born in a council flat in Newmains, in the outskirts of Wishaw or Wishy for anyone
I know it well,
knows. And it was like a high-rise council flat. We moved from there when I was 8 to a semi-detached in Cambusnethan. And my mother still lives there to this day. So I'm not saying it was. It wasn't a deprived childhood. I had a very happy childhood, but there was no. There was never lots of money kicking around for things. I didn't. I wasn't going around wanting things in that sense. But no, there was no entrepreneurial people I looked up to or anything like that. I think it just came from. Some of my friends have got this. I want it. How can I get it? Right, I need to go and get a job. Mm-hmm. So I started. I had 3 paper rounds from the age of 13, and I did them through till I was 18. And I set up my first business venture when I was 15 by selling discount sportswear. So I found a place.
Yeah, I see. You're quite entrepreneurial even from a young age then.
Whether it was entrepreneurial or just like how do I make some money?
Yeah.
I came across some guy who was selling sportswear not too far from where you live. I think it was sort of Bath Gateway memory. And I used to go and see him once a week. My dad would take me. I'd look round his warehouse, I'd grab some things, and then I would go and sell them to my mates at school. And it was all going pretty well. I was making some reasonable money, and one day I get a message that the head of PE wanted to see me. No idea what it was for. It's a bit strange. So I went down, and basically he gave me, to use a West of Scotland phrase, he gave me a doing because I was competing with him, and basically I was undercutting him in things. So that afternoon we agreed to go into business together. So I started selling some of his stuff, he was selling some of mine, and I did that for another couple of years.
The early joint venture.
And I worked in the gates at Motherwell Football Club for a period as well, and then I worked in McDonald's part-time whilst I was a student at Strathclyde. And all of that wasn't because I particularly wanted work. It was I needed money to do what I wanted to do. Yeah. So that's what drove me in those early days, and that worked pretty well because I bought my first car myself when I was 17. Bought my first house when I was 20, and my parents didn't contribute anything. Not because they didn't want to, just they didn't have it. My dad had a heart attack and a stroke when he was 15. Mm-hmm. It's when he was 15. Sorry, when I was 15 and he was 35. So that left its mark on me, and from then, he was earning less money than he had been as well. So that's what made things a wee bit tougher. But by no means, it wasn't a bad childhood or anything. Mm-hmm. And I guess it just escalated from there.
Yeah, and from there, because I've listened to podcasts, I've spoke to you several times. You then got into the world of finance at some stage, working for some big firms. You're a chartered accountant as well. How did this all kind of come about? Was it a desire to get into that world, or was it just happen by chance?
It wasn't. When I was at school, you've got to choose very early what you want to do, which I think is a wee bit unfair because you're going to be doing something for the rest of your life, and you're maybe 12, 13, 14, 15 when you're having to make that decision on what route do I go down. And I decided I wanted to go into business, but I wasn't quite sure what business was in that sense. And I worked out, right, there's 2 main ways to get into this, either by going to university to do law or to do accountancy. And no one in my family had ever gone to university, and that's why I worked at McDonald's to put me through university. So I decided to do accounts because I was always better at numbers than I was at words. Did a crash hire accounts in 6th year, breezed it, literally. There was people who'd been doing it for a while. And I was looking at this saying, what's so difficult with this? It just seemed to come to me. Mm-hmm. I remember, guys, going back to primary 2, my teacher, Miss Black, was teaching me algebra, standing at her desk because I just found all the number stuff easy. So I've just always seemed to have some ability when it comes to numbers. And that took me down the finance side, and trained with Arthur Anderson. I had the opportunity to join any of the big 6, which I was very fortunate to to have at the time. Decided to go to Anderson's because they paid the most money. You got overtime, and you did a 2-week training course in Spain when you started. So it ticked enough boxes. I worked there for 3 years, and then I went into private equity. I worked for 3 different private equity venture capital companies over a period of 6 years for a couple of banks and for Scottish Enterprise. It was the precursor to Scottish Equity Partners. And that got me into finance. But I never wanted to be an accountant.
Yep.
Last month, it was 30 years since I qualified as a chartered accountant, which, as you keep reminding me, I'm reasonably old.
No, you look good, mate. Good skin routine.
And been moisturising since I was 11. My mother was an Avon woman, so that's where it came from. So there was never any real plan, because I hated doing audits when I was doing my training, because all you're doing is you're looking back. Who cares what happened last week or last month? Look at all the bank statements. It doesn't matter. I was always more interested in the forward looking and looking to the future and trying to create value or make businesses worth more. So it was that passion. But I did having left the private equity, I went into industry for 18 months with a company that had been an investment in one of the private equity companies I was involved in, and they'd just been sold to a New York Stock Exchange listed company, and they needed 3-day flash figures, 5-day full reporting packs, and the guy they had at the time was 60 something, and he did everything in pencil and paper in between smoke breaks, so I had to be ramped up quite a lot. So in the course of that first 12 months, I learned more than I had in the previous 8 or 9 years, because I was doing everything other than selling and producing, because it was a manufacturing company. They had a couple of patented valves. MD was sales, his brother was production, so everything else was on me, and I had to deal with the Americans because the MD didn't like dealing with the Americans. Right. So I had to keep them sweet, and the business was losing money. The diligence that had been done pre-deal was very poor. So we were consuming cash on an ongoing basis, and my job was to keep the production going, make sure we're paying the wages every week, and keeping the suppliers happy.
So you're right in the cold face, and without you doing that work, the business was in jeopardy then?
Completely. It wouldn't have survived. And this is long before days of online accounting and online banking. Yeah. I mean, this was like, you got a bank statement, a week after month end. You had a desktop machine where you did the accounting. So I had to come up with a way of doing everything every day to being up to date, so I could then forecast these numbers.
Sure.
And then,
so you're building your own systems almost.
That's what it came from. Right. And for me, that's where a lot of the things that I do now, I go back to the learnings there, because you know me and my cash, and we'll no doubt talk about my 2 rules and all these other things I do at some point. But for me, the profit and loss account and the balance sheet can be wrong. It can be manipulated in a lot of different ways, which probably shouldn't talk about too much, but it can be by making different assumptions. But your bank statement is normally correct.
Yes.
The bank don't get it wrong very often. So if you're focused on cash, that's for me is the real important thing, because you can't pay the wages with profit.
Correct.
You can't pay the suppliers with profit, and if you don't pay the staff on a Friday, they don't normally turn up on the Monday.
Absolutely.
So the whole thing it gave me during that, I'd say the initial 12 months in particular, was focus on cash and the reporting that was required. Because this was going out to our divisional office in Houston, Texas, and it was then going out to our main corporate office, Portland in Oregon, and I had to go out there quarterly and report, stand in front of the chairman and the main board. The MD only went once, had a panic attack, and never went again. So given he was the boss, he sent me every quarter for a week.
Looking back at that, was that quite daunting? But I'm guessing that even if it was probably a big learning curve, and you probably got a lot from it. Historically, I'd never been a fan of public speaking. Even at school, I didn't like putting my hand up and answering questions. Right? One of the things the teachers used to say to me, you don't put your hand up, but you know the answers. Yeah, but I don't want to speak in front of people. I never liked standing up in front of people doing stuff. So what happened the first time we went out, he froze when he was doing his MD's report, and basically effectively ran out the room, right? And I was left to pick up. So I had to do his bit, then I had to do the finance bit. So you just get on with it. If you're there in a situation, you have to do it.
And it made it easier going next time because there was a standing joke, is Ian not coming? And he always made an excuse. He was ill, it was a holiday, it was a family thing, but he never went. And there was not very much they could do on the basis that he had sold out anyway. Right. So he had his money and there was no earn it or anything. And eventually he walked away because he did fall out badly. But yeah, I just learned so much on, cash, the day-to-day stuff, the processes, the team, and then dealing with, the how large corporates do it. Yep. So I was getting the experience of running a small company. It was only turning 3 or 4 million. So I was getting that hands-on experience, but I was also getting the big company experience that says, here's how you run sort of PLC. It was done a PLC standard. It was a US public company. So it was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Going back a wee step, the private equity thing interests me because in the world that I'm in, whilst I don't do any private equity stuff, private equity sometimes has a bad name in terms of when they try and do a deal with a business owner, they'll agree a deal and then they'll start screwing them on the price towards the end of negotiations and things like that. Is that something you experienced? Did you have good experience doing private equity?
Not the way we operated.
Right.
Our mantra was, we agree a deal with you, we will deliver that deal, unless you've told us something that is not true.
Different.
So if you've told us you're turning over, £5 million and we find you're only turning over 1, or you said you made X and you made a lot less, or something's materially different, other than that, we will deliver that deal. But there was a lot of people who had that approach. Yeah. And that's just the nature. That's the way some people do business. Not a way I think you should do business. And I think that's where the bad name comes from. But if you're a business owner looking for investment, or you're just looking for funding from your bank, don't tell lies. Right,
because they'll find it anyway.
Because it'll come out, and and it'll catch up with you at some point. And anyway, it's not a good way to do business.
I remember years and years ago, my mum and dad bought a business when I was part of that business, and it was distressed, right? And I don't know if I've told you this before.
Yeah.
And the business was properly distressed, but it had like 80 staff, 3 depots, and because it was distressed, it was a very, very light touch due diligence process, right? Now we had someone that was supposed to be looking at everything as quickly as possible, but it didn't realise that this guy was creating dummy invoices.
Yeah.
So that changed the deal once we got in, but he didn't know that until you're in. It was just creating invoices out of thin air to prop up the revenue. And that was you hear about some stories and you think that doesn't go on, but it does, even at a low level. People think they can, if some people think they can get away with something, get an extra bit of cash in their pocket, walk away scot-free, some people do anything to get out of that situation.
Very rarely will you get away with that over a prolonged period.
Yes.
Particularly when you look at invoice finance type facilities, because there's so many checks and measures in place now that you find that reasonably quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So skipping forward a wee bit further, so that was your earlier years, and now I know you do a lot more in-depth stuff with business owners, SMEs basically. Talk to us a little about that. The Know Your Numbers kind of program. What does that involve? Who's it for?
So the Know Your Numbers is focused on business owners, because most business owners understand their business, they understand their sector. So they're good at fixing roofs, or they're good at building houses, or they're good at providing a particular professional service, because that's what they've trained at, that's what they know, and they've perhaps worked for someone else before, or they've just learned it and they've gone and set up the business. Very few of them know about how to run a business, how to deal with banks, investors, how to deal with the financial information. So I've found that over the years, because normally when I engage with a client, as a part-time finance director, one of my first questions is, how much do you know about financial statements? Right? 9 times out of 10, I know a wee bit, I get by. Right? I say, okay, forgive me, I'm going to treat you as if you know nothing. Right? This is a profit and loss account, bang, bang, bang. This is a balance sheet. Bang. And you'll see the light bulbs going off, and they'll say, I never knew that. No one's ever explained that to me. Their accountants.
Or you'll see it go right over their head, I'm guessing.
Not a lot.
Right.
Not a lot. I can tell when they don't know. I can tell when it's something new, because I just feel like most people don't know this, and that's really where it came from. Particularly it was magnified during lockdown, because we had lockdown, then we had panic, right? How do we get funding? And you'd seen this on LinkedIn, how do I get my funding? But right, all I did with all my clients, because we had up to date management accounts, we had up to date forecasts. We had all the other information that you needed as part of that. And all we did was engage with the bank and said, right, we need 50 grand or we need 5 million, whatever that was. We sorted that out in a matter of weeks. Yeah. But everybody else was running around headless chickens.
No plan.
And I thought, right, there's something here where I can do something that will help these people, because running a business isn't easy, even from an operational side. And it's very lonely. And if you can find someone who can sit beside the owner and explain these things, it's transformational, not just for their business, but for them as an individual. Because
sets them free, doesn't it? Having that information.
They stop worrying about cash because we've got the right funding in place. They stop worrying about how they've traded because you've got the real-time, up-to-date information. And it just changes the whole mindset. And also you go from turnover as 1 million, 2 million to 3 million to 5 million to 10 million and making significantly more money. So it makes a huge difference. And a lot of people think that it's only smaller businesses that are like that. I did a lunch seminar for one of the banks a few months ago. Spoke to MD of a business afterwards, and he said, love what you're talking about, because I was talking about know your numbers, where you are, where you've been, where you're going, forecasting, funding, and the bank, people from the bank are nodding, in agreement, because it's
that's really what I want to hear.
It's reasonably easy. And they chatted with me, so I'll give you a phone sometimes. A lot of what you said resonated with me. So he called me the following week. I still remember exactly where I was. I still remember this phone call. And he said, I listened to that last week. I really hit a nerve for me, because I think it was August, September time I did this presentation. He said, our year ends March. I think we've turned over about 3.5 million, but I don't know. And I've no idea if we've made money or lost money. And I'm like, you're kidding me on. I mean, this is like 5-6 months after your year end. You don't know, and you've taken on funding, and how do you sleep at night? So things like that happen, and I've seen big businesses do. I've seen 20 million plus, 30 million plus businesses have the same thing, because it's not taught. And this is where, and I don't know how long we're in, but I've not had a pop at accountants yet. and this is where I'll have a pop at accountants, because in my view, accountants do not educate and manage their clients properly to explain this. I'm not saying all accountants, because there are many, many good accountants out there. I work with a lot of good accountants as well. My clients all have good accountants, and it's to be encouraged because you need it. But there's a lot of accountants out there who will not explain a P&L and a balance sheet. And what will happen is you'll go and see your accountant 8.5 months after the end of the year. Here's your accounts for the year, because you don't know what you've done up to that point. Here's your accounts for the year. Sign this. Okay, that's fine. Okay, yeah, you made a profit extra. Send a check to HMRC for this, and here's my invoice. I'll see you next year.
So common, isn't it?
Where's the value in that?
That's funny you say that. I was chatting to a business owner to potentially acquire the business 2 weeks ago. He's got a HVAC company, and been around for 5 or 6 years, maybe a bit longer. His last set of accounts that was published was year end 22, and he made 500 grand operating profit, which got me interested, obviously potentially doing a deal with him. And he wants X amount. However, his accountant cannot and will not produce any P&L's, balance sheet, management accounts for the time from June 22 or June 23, July 22. So that's a 18-month, 2-year time frame that's completely, you can't see what's been going on. And the accountant is the one advising his client, or his client, you should be looking for X amount here. Right, okay, that's your opinion, but can you back it up with the numbers and the facts? That goes exactly what you're saying there. Your accountant needs to produce accurate information, and that's also the problem with advisors and accountants. If they're actually scuppering this deal for the guy, he's trying to benefit from the current entrepreneurial life, and because he can't get those numbers, he won't get that from any buyer. Like the figure he's looking for, it's just impossible.
Well, we don't know. Because he may be making $1 million now, but you don't know. See, I see it quite simply. If you do everything every day, you're only ever a day behind. Right? So you do your bank reconciliation, you process your sales invoices, you process your purchase invoices.
Yep.
Next day, you do your bank rec, you process your sales invoice, you process. So everything's up to date on an ongoing basis. Now, as an accountant, you should be advising your client to do that. You should also be saying, see, rather than come and see me once a year, why don't we do monthly management accounts?
Yep.
Some people talk about quarterly. I detest quarterly accounts, but they're better than annual accounts, right? Why don't we do monthly accounts? Here's what you need to do every day and every week in order to do that, and we can help you do that. So what you're actually doing there is you're helping your client, you're saving them stress, you're probably helping them grow, giving the opportunity to get some funding as well, but you're probably increasing your fee as well. Yeah. And because that client now has better value. Information, right, he's going to be happy to pay more because rather than turning over, 1 million, he's turning over 1.5 because you've helped do that. So you've not only got a happier client, you're making more money. That client will probably refer you to other people. So this is where I have a pop at the bad accountants. It's not all accountants, and I think that's a reasonably easy thing to change.
Absolutely. Again, another quick story. Another HVAC company who's a client actually of ours. He was getting charged silly amounts of money, like for an accountant, for a company of his size. I think he was getting charged $3,000 a month, right? Which was just ludicrous. And same idea, didn't speak to him the entire year until the accounts came. He got his accounts and realised that he had to pay £190,000 corporation tax. He didn't have the money because he spent it all. Because
he's looking at his bank account today rather than looking at the forecast.
Because he had no idea what the accounts were going to look like.
But you've heard me say this as well. How do you run a business without a forecast?
Yep.
Badly. I don't see how you can, because you can't just look at your bank account today and say, right, okay, well I'll go on holiday, I'll buy myself a new car, whatever, because you don't know what's coming out next week or next month. You have to pay your wages, pay your suppliers, pay your VAT, whatever that may be. So you've got to be looking forward. And similarly, you can't just go to the bank and say, I need some funding. How much do you need? Well, I need between 50 grand and 5 million. Right? Reasonably great, right? You've really got to narrow that down and then show them why. And these things are really easy, because for me, it's about understanding where you are, where you've been, and where you're going. And that's the thing we teach on Know Your Numbers through a period of 6 main teaching sessions and 6 clinics. And you get people who, I'll give you an example. Guy in one of the earlier groups, he emailed me at 9:10, so 10 minutes after the first session. I said, thanks very much for letting me into the group, because you got to apply and you do an interview, because I need to make sure that
the right values and stuff.
You're ambitious, your right values, you'll share, you'll be open, that type of thing. So I've learned more in the last 2 hours than I have in 35 years. Yep. He was 57 and he wanted to do a big push in the business over the next 5 years, which he did, and I helped him do that, get some funding and set things up. So he had been going to his accountant, he had a business, started when he was 21, and he was going to his accountant every year, signing the accounts, sending the revenue a check, sending the accountant a check. Yep. Knew absolutely nothing. So it's easy to change that, because accountants try to make out that they're all really clever and there's this real black art, or there's this myth that accounting and finance is difficult. It's not. It's simple. It's just basic numbers. And what I've found is if you can show the business owner that, and then you can point them in the right direction of, here's the key things you should be focusing on in your business, then they will go and focus on that, and they'll make more money. They'll also make better decisions because of that, and they'll drive the performance.
Absolutely. Your perfect client, what would they look like? Is there a certain type of? Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a minute ago that they need to be ambitious and all the rest of it. Is there any red flags? Actually, that's probably another question. Is there any red flags for you that you wouldn't take somebody on?
Red flags. I've become better at not taking on poor clients over the last few years. I guess you live and learn. I've taken on a few that I probably shouldn't have. I think the classic is someone who's always blaming the team, blaming the accountant, blaming the bank. The bank won't give me funding and my accountant's useless. Someone like that, or someone who's just lazy, who's not prepared to take the action, put the hours in, and also someone who doesn't treat their staff well, then I don't want to deal with people like that. I want to deal with people who want to learn, who want to do things, who are ambitious, who treat people well, who do business the way I believe business should be done, which is by a handshake. And okay, you need to document everything now, but it's about a handshake, and it's about if you agree to pay someone a particular price on particular terms, do it.
Stick to it.
I had a client phoned me a few weeks ago. wasn't a phone call. It was actually an email a few weeks ago. So and so is chasing us for payment, $5,000, whatever it was. We pay in 30 days. They're saying it's 7 days. Right. So I said, well, what did we agree with them? I don't know. I'll go and check. Came back. We said we'd pay them in 7 days. We'd pay them in 7 days. Because for me, the price is a package deal, because typically it's a price with terms. So if the price is 100 and it's 30 days, you get £100, you pay in 30 days. If you want to pay in 60 days, well, the price isn't 100, because that's not what we agreed. It's maybe 105. And you should be open and upfront about that at the start. So I feel that that's really important, and I think it's something that people ignore, because they'll take the price and they'll just pay when they like. Construction in particular.
ISG is a great example of that, isn't it? It's if everybody tried to do business that way, how much better would all businesses, the whole economy be? I mean, you've joked to this in the past, but it's actually, you've done it kind of tongue in cheek, but it's actually true. Anybody can set up a company for, I don't know, 30 quid now.
13. You can get it for 13 quid at companies.
13 quid, that's with a Tide account or something, isn't it? Whatever it is, 30 quid. And anyone can do that. But they don't have any training, any skills they need to learn. Whereas if there was something like your program, at that, it's almost like a qualifying thing. That would, how much better would business be?
It's funny. I actually had this chat with someone who said this to me on an earlier Know Your Numbers group. He said he's a real fan. He's done it. He's put through a couple of people in his team now as well. They've done it, and I remember him saying, because it's recorded, and he actually said it on my podcast, which will come out in a few months. Anybody who sets up a company at Companies House should automatically be made do Know Your Numbers.
You'd be a wealthy man.
I said, John, if you can arrange that, you can have a big commission. So, but it's true though, because you don't need any business knowledge. We could go out onto the street just now and pick up half a dozen people, set up companies with them. Also, in the course of the next hour, we've now got 6 companies, and they probably haven't got a clue how to run it. And that's the bit that I find really sad, because it takes a lot to go and set up yourself, to set up a company, and the risks that you're taking. You're perhaps giving up a job, or you've got the opportunity to do something for whatever reason, and it's lonely. It's tiring, because you're working a lot of hours and you've got not a lot of support and you don't have a lot of people to talk to. So that's again why this came out. I spend a lot of time just helping people, point them in the right direction, whether it's calls, emails,
referrals, all sorts of stuff,
videos, all that sort of stuff, to try and help people. Don't get me wrong, I'm a commercial business at the end of the day. Ideal world, I want people to come and join a Know Your Numbers group or work with me one-to-one. But see if I can spend half an hour with someone and point them in the right direction, or point them to someone they should be speaking to, then that's brilliant. That for me, that's the real giving back.
That's the thing I respect about you, Craig, because you're value driven. You're always trying to give value, whether it's free, because you've got loads of free stuff online, and then obviously when it comes to a bigger network and referral system, you've got the thing that I think sets us apart. So we've both got business experience. There's a lot of coaches or perceived coaches out there, and perceived mentors that actually don't have any business experience. They've never been in the trenches. They've never had to deal with creditors chasing them, people not paying them on time. And I try to give advice to business owners. A lot of people that actually come to us at Monopoly have came after being with someone else who's given them a bad experience. Do you find that people come to you after maybe having a mentor? I'm using air quotes here, mentor or coach that just doesn't provide that value? Is that something you've seen?
Occasionally, yeah. Anybody can set up today and call themselves coach. And like you've said, the best coaches are the people who have been there, they've done it, or they've got clients that they can show, look, I took my clients from here to here, and here's what they've done. It's the whole social proof, the testimonials. That's important. Now, most people come to me when they've got cash problems, generally, either good or bad. More so on the good side, because I don't do a lot of turnaround work. I don't have time to get involved in that. Turnaround is very time consuming, as you know. It's phone calls every hour. It's this, it's that. There's always a fire to put out. So no, did it a long time ago. I prefer doing what I'm doing now. But when I talk about cash problems, I'm talking about situations where they've grown from $1 million to a couple of million, and they're now creaking a bit. And they've got all these other people chapping the door saying
their overheads are going up.
We want to work with you.
Yep.
And the business owner saying, well, I don't have enough money, because they don't understand working capital and they don't understand funding. They don't understand financials, so they've not got any information. So typically what happens is I then do an exercise with them to work out, what have you got? What information do you collate? What does your accountant do? What does your in-house team do? And we then work it out, what do you actually need to run the business? We need up-to-date management accounts. We need to do everything every day. We get all the people into the right places, and we make sure the accountant is doing what they're meant to be doing on a daily, weekly, monthly, and an annual basis as well. So we create that financial information, and then we create some forecasts. Okay, I like to operate on the basis that cash is not a limiting factor. So we assume that there's a pot of cash over there in the corner. You, Mr. Business Owner, can take out as much of that cash as you want, but you've got to pay for it, right? Because it's either debt funding or it's equity, investment coming into business. So you need to pay for that. How much of that are you going to take, and what are you going to do with that? Oh, right, okay, because it's a very different approach. Yeah. So we can then say, okay, assuming cash isn't a limitation, how much of this work can you do? What do you need? How many more people you need? Vans or offices or other capital expenditure, whatever that. So we build that into a forecast, and then we look at that and say, is that realistic? Will we really go from $1 million to 10 in a year? Probably not. Let's make that sensible, and we then get that into the right shape, and we then package that up and take it to the bank. Because from a business owner's perspective, you need to understand where you are, where you've been, and where you're going from a financial perspective. And that means where you are, management accounts and key performance indicators in terms of how you've traded, where you've been, your prior year accounts, making sure they're up to date and they're right. They're either filed or they're ready to be filed, whatever that is. But more importantly, where you're going, the forecast. And what you're doing in terms of forecasting is you're taking the assumptions based on where you are and where you've been to build that forecast. Because none of us knows what's going to happen tomorrow. None of us have got a crystal ball. Well, actually,
for the listeners, Craig's just brought his crystal ball in his pocket.
Some of us have a crystal ball, right? But it doesn't tell us everything, right? But we've got to use those assumptions in terms of where we are, right? The rent's £1,000 a month, our wage bill's 50 grand a month, whatever that is. So we know all of that stuff, and also we've got experience of what's happened. So we build that into the forecast, right? So that then gives us the information we need to run the business. Then we want funding. So let's assume we're going for bank debt, okay? What does the bank need to give us funding? The bank needs to know where we are, where we've been, and where we're going. It's the same information. And all we do is we package that up, maybe a wee bit differently, and we give it to the bank. And see if you can do that. And you've got a commercial business and you've got a team to deliver. Yep. You'll have the bank eating out your hand all day long.
Because you're differentiated from everybody else that asks for money, because no one actually does that.
It puts you into the top 5-10% of people who engage with the banks, because my job as an FD or advisor to a business owner and engaging with them is to make the bank's job easy. Right? Yep. So I know roughly what they need, and I'll be able to give them 80% of the info before they ask me, because I know roughly what they will need. There's sometimes some nuances, but if you can do that, the bank will eat out your hand all day long. So it's not difficult to get the funding, and that then allows the business to go from 1 to 2 to 5. I've got multiple clients that I've worked with who have more than doubled year on year over the last few years, and it's because they've got a good business and they've engaged with me, and they've now got the right financial information and the right funding. So it's not. I don't see any of that as difficult.
It's not, and it goes the same for investing. What you've just mentioned there, having accurate cash flows, financial accounts, anyone, so the bank's an investor effectively, they're giving you cash to work with. Same with an investor from our perspective. We wouldn't invest cash into a business that can't produce any reasonable financial information or cash flows. Cash flow is such an interesting thing. I know that's one thing that two of us talk about a lot online. And it's the most obvious thing about business, but yet so few actually have a forecast. I would say so we've got 15 businesses just now in the group, and there's 2 out of those 15, I think, that had a cash flow forecast before we got involved.
Yeah.
The rest didn't.
Most don't.
And why do you think that is? Because, you know, it is literally the lifeblood of you. And I should also ask, what's your 2 rules?
My 2 rules, yes, my two rules for any business owner, regardless of size or sector. My 2 rules are: rule 1, focus on cash. Rule 2, don't forget rule 1. Simple as that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And that for me just magnifies the importance of cash. But in terms of forecasting, okay, most business owners don't know finance. So they don't even know you need to have up-to-date financial information rather than instead of even having information about what's going to happen tomorrow, next week and next month. So they're not expected. No, this is where the accountants come in. And the problem we have with most accountants is that they haven't got a clue what's going to happen going forward.
I think giving a cash flow, they're looking at previous information, aren't they?
But even then, most of them aren't close enough to the business. Yeah. And most of them have never actually looked forward. Because all they do is they look back and tell you what happened, last month maybe, but probably last year. So the accountancy profession was set up to look back and to work out tax, not to look forward. And that's the big difference for me. The difference between an accountant and a good FD is that the accountant's looking that way, the FD's looking that way. The FD's going to tell you what's happening next month or in 6 months, or what we need to put in place based on what you've told us in terms of where the business is going. We need X amount going forward. Yep. And chat I was having with one of the banks earlier this week, and he was making the point, like I always do, you go and raise money before you need it. You don't phone the bank on a Friday to say, I need 100 grand for my wages. Totally. You look ahead and say 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. I have discussions with funders of my clients that say in 6 months we'll probably need X and probably we'll need Y in 12 months. So we're looking forward, because we've got the longer term forecast as well. Yeah. We've got 13-week rolling cash flow forecast. So that's a short term. How do we pay the wages next week, next month? How do we pay the suppliers? All of that stuff. But we're also looking forward. What are we doing for the rest of the year and what are we doing for next year? Been working on a forecast this morning with a client going out to end of 2027. Wow, because we're engaging with the bank at the moment. We're saying, look, we need X just now to do what we're trying to do. Then next year we'll probably need this. Then further out we're going to need that. So we're already looking for, because we're already thinking about selling that business. We know roughly what we want to sell it for in 3 years time. I had the same discussion with someone on last week as well. So it's, for me, the real skill is in the looking forward, and that's what I'm trying to get business owners to do, or at least have the right people in their corner. Rather than doing a talk on this. I've done a talk by the time this goes out, but I'm doing a talk with, funnily enough, a network of accountants.
Oh wow, that'll be interesting.
Week, which will be interesting. Now, fortunately, it's not live, so they can't throw things at me, and if they do, it'll just hit their screens. But I'll be making the point with them that they can have better relationships and happier clients and more profitable clients.
Make more money, yeah.
By actually being by being the co-pilot.
Yep.
If you think about an airplane, right, the business owners, is the pilot. You're the co-pilot. Sit there and give them the information they need. Show them where they're going. Make sure you've got the parachute there, and the parachute's the cash or the funding, rather than saying, yeah, we just travelled from here to there. Well done. Who cares? We've done it. We can't change it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point you make, because accountants could do so much more if they were more engaged with our clients. I mean, some of the ones that we've been quite well known recently for doing turnarounds, and so many of these people get themselves into huge amounts of debt, and it's not just over the last 2 weeks. This has happened over a long period of time, and you think, well, could the accountant have done more for the client to avoid that? Yes and no, but at the same time, the reason I'm saying that is some of these accountants will then, they'll then demand that the business is worth X amount or something when they've allowed that business to get into massive debt. So, yeah, I agree with the point you make that they could do more.
There's part of the problem there, and I'm on the side of the accountants here, is that a lot of business owners just approach this on the basis, I need an accountant, who's the cheapest? And they'll ask their pal, right? Ask their pal, and their pal, I pay 50 quid a month or 50 quid a year or whatever it is, 100 quid, right? We'll go for the cheapest, because all they're thinking about is, I need to file accounts every year and I need my tax done. They don't understand the value of having real-time information, having monthly information, having forecasts. That's where the accountants get it wrong. So these guys are purely buying on price, and the accountant, for you accountants listening out, that you should be saying to your client, That's fine if that's what you want. But you know what? See if we did this for you. Rather than turnover X, we can help you get to 2, 3, 4 times X. But here's what it'll involve. And if you start approaching that as an investment rather than a cost, similarly with the working capital facilities, approach that as an investment rather than a cost. I mean, if you're turning over £1 million at an average gross margin of 30%, okay, and you need funding to help you get to 2 million. So you're getting an incremental £1 million at 30%. That's £300,000.
Yep.
Okay, your funding's not going to cost you anything like that. Even if you needed £500,000 over the course of that year, right? And it was at 10%. That's only 50 grand. You're still way up. You've got a much more valuable business. You've got a business that allows you to sleep at night.
More resources.
So that's where I'm critical of the accountants, that you've got to go back and educate your clients and tell them these things and show them that it's an investment rather than just a cost. It's like buying tyres for your car.
Yeah.
Right. I bet you've never sat on a Friday night with your wife and said, you know what? Let's go and look at car tyres tomorrow. You don't, right?
No.
Because you buy tyres when you've got a puncture, or it's in the garage and they say your tyres will be illegal soon. Yes. Or you see there's a problem. So it's like a grudge purchase, and you only do it because you have to.
Yeah.
And that's the way a lot of the accountancy is. People are only doing it because they have to. So what I'm saying is educate your clients and say, do you want so much more? We can reduce your stress. We can make you more money. We can have a business that's much more valuable, a business that's more saleable, right? And I'll do this for you. Yeah, it's going to cost you more, but here's what you get from it. And that's where the profession really needs to up their game.
But that's where people like yourself come in, isn't it? And that's where you can plug that gap. You've spoken a little bit about the Know Your Numbers programme. It's over 6 sessions. How does that look then in terms of a timescale? Is it 6 weeks? Is it 6 months? Is it bespoke per client?
Yeah, we're working on a few variations at the moment. Historically, we've done it over 6 months.
Okay.
So we do a 2-hour session 1 week, and then 2 hours later we do a 1 hour session. So the 2-hour session is focused on learning. So basically, I'm effectively teaching for the bulk of that 2 hours. So maybe an hour and a half, and then the second session is focused on applying that knowledge. So people are then coming back and asking questions. You mentioned gross margin. Can you explain that again? Or the layout of the P&L, can you talk about that? Or this thing about forecasting? Or indeed, they're bringing, here's the numbers in my business. Can you explain this and explain that? Or what should I be focusing on in my business? And we do that 6 sessions. The structure is broadly session 1, profit and loss account and balance sheet. So basically, educating the business owner. What's a profit and loss do? What's a balance sheet? Okay. Second session is management accounts. So what information should you be producing every day, every week, every month that you need to run your business? And also looking at key performance indicators. What are the things that make your business tick? What are the things that if I ask a business owner, how do you know you've had a good day, a good week, or a good month? Yep. Rather than telling me the phones are busy, or all my men are on site, or all my vehicles are out, point to me something financially. Yep. Point to your margin. Point to
cash in the bank.
To something. You know, it might be turnover. It might be debtor days. Whatever. So it's then focusing on 3, 4, 5 things that you should be really focusing on and using to drive your business. So that's session 2. Session 3, we talk about forecasting. So I explain why you need a forecast, how a forecast works, both in terms of a rolling weekly 13-week cash flow and also a longer term P&L balance sheet and cash flow forecast. And because of the importance of forecasting, we do another session on forecasting. Session 4, we actually build forecasts. So I show the business owners, here's how you build that weekly model, here's how you build the monthly model. Session 5 takes us into operational finance. So we're looking at the difference between direct costs and indirect costs. Most business owners don't know. Many accountants don't know.
They usually put things in the different sections, don't they, of the accounts? Yep.
Often wrong. Yep. How you calculate your gross profit, what gross margin is, looking at pricing, looking at quotations, and looking at break even. So a real focus on that. And that's where, because people have then learned in the previous sessions, they get better understanding. You see so many light bulbs, and so that means if I do more of this and I do more of that and I don't do this, it makes huge changes. And then the sixth session is a bit of a wrap up on cash, because we talk about cash and funding all the way through, but we go through different funding methods, bank debt, investment, all that type of thing, and also how you build value in your business.
Yep.
So talking about some of the key drivers, building a management team, recurring revenue, having differentiation, having a niche, all of those sorts of things.
That's really helpful, because if somebody wants to sell that business, and they might not, but at least they've got all their ducks lined up and they can do that.
Yeah, but even if you don't, your business will perform better, and it will make more profit and generate more cash anyway. So that's the 6 months, and we're looking at doing. We're going to have a specific one on construction, a specific know your numbers just for female entrepreneurs.
Right.
We've got a know your numbers early stage, which will be slightly different, and we're also going to have a know your numbers growth and succession. So there's lots of stuff happening there.
You'll be a busy man.
Hopefully less busy than I am just now.
The whole thing with that program, the application part, was the one word I took away from that, because you can go and watch YouTube videos, you can listen to people like us on LinkedIn and take our content or videos, but actually applying it is where you learn.
That's the key. It's like people who go to training courses or go away for a weekend, and whether it's a Tony Robbins course or it's something, and they think they go and they attend it. Right, I've done it. I know it. Nonsense.
Yep.
That's just a fraction. You've got to go away and take that knowledge, and you've got to apply it, and you've got to live it. And that's why we talk about session 1 is about learning, session 2 is about applying, and then you grow. So it's learn, apply, and grow. And it makes huge changes to not just the business, but to the business owner as well. The mindset, the stress, all of those things. And it's great fun. It's great fun.
Now, moving on a wee bit, still know your numbers, but you've been doing a bit of a rebrand recently, which has coincided similar times to us. So you've been kind of going through an interesting rebrand, which I've noticed. And why have you decided to do a kind of rebrand? What was the thinking behind it?
Good question. Let me come up with a couple of answers. Really, because it's grown arms and legs. I think one of my frustrations is not enough people know about it. I know that anyone who does it basically raves about it. Yep. We've got a full 100% guarantee money back. Always have done since day one. It's never even been mentioned as part of a discussion yet. Yep. And that means even if you've got at the end of the 6 sessions, if you come back to me and say, I've got nothing from this, you can have your money back. I'm not asking any questions. That's just not a line. Yep. It's not a selling point. You know me well enough. Yep. You'll get your money back, because you can't go through that and not learn anything.
Correct.
If you don't apply it, that's very different. That's why the interview, that's why the application part is important, because one of the questions in it is understanding where you are now, but what's your ambition over the next 3 years? And if you're turning over, whether it's whatever it is, X, and you'll be doing the same 3 years, it's not for you. I had a call with a guy earlier this week who's grown his business. He's gone from being just him and a few people to double figures now. And we chatted through, and I said, I don't think you're quite right for this yet. I think you probably need to wait 6-9 months. So I'm not selling this in that sense.
It speaks for itself.
Hopefully the results and the testimonials, and just the change in people. There's nothing better than getting a testimonial from someone, or a nice WhatsApp message just saying, wow, I've gone from here to here. I'm not stressed. I'm making 10 times what I used to make. My business is worth so much more money. It's great. It's great when that happens, and that's ultimately why I do this.
It isn't. You're right. Like we're in this to make money, but that's a byproduct of providing value to people.
I think that's the key. And I think one of the things you've got to do is, if you can give one of the things you've got to do is, if you can give value first, like we talk about, because we both do posts on LinkedIn and videos and stuff, and we're always trying to educate. If you can give that value, then people then say, wait a minute, if that's what he gives me for nothing, what did I get when I joined? One of the ladies who joined did a great testimonial video and said that I'd spent, she said it was half an hour, wasn't it? It was an hour. We'd spent an hour on the initial interview chat, right? And I'd found lots of things, and I was like pulling my head out thinking, wow, you problem this, problem that, problem that. And when she was asked, was there anything that made you think twice about joining? She said, no. She said, I get so much value from that first hour. And I thought, well, wait a minute, if that's what I get for nothing, what do I get if I start paying for it? So something like that's just a brilliant testimonial to have.
And there's that old saying, when you pay attention.
I think that's right.
I think that's right too. Yeah. But the rebrand, and it looks cool the way you've done it, the way you're getting yourself more out there. I know you just mentioned you're doing a couple of new books. as well.
We've got
webinars.
Yeah, we've got there's 2 books out already. Mastering Cash Flow for Business Owners. If anyone wants a free copy, just go to masteringcashflowbook.com. You can download a PDF or you can get it on Amazon. And Lessons from the Rocking Chair, my Friday afternoon videos out in my back decking. We turned that into a book. My friend in Canada said, turn it into a book. So we've got another 2 coming out Q4 this year, sort of November, December time. One is on the Know Your Numbers framework. So I'll be taking people through the where you are, where you've been, where you're going, and just expanding that a wee bit, so that if you don't actually want to do Know Your Numbers, you want a cheap way to do it, just go and buy the book. And the other one is a wee bit different. Don't even know if you know about this yet. It's a book, it talks about a guy called Dave who owns a construction company.
Okay.
And it goes through his journey from stressed out, no money, pulling his hair out, falling out with his wife, and he's introduced to this guy called Cashflow Craig, and his life changes.
Sounds familiar.
So there's all cartoons and images and things in it. So it's
That's
quite,
clever.
so it'll be quite amusing for that.
The thing with that is
well.
I know it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek, right? But there's so many people resonate with that.
It
Everybody
is.
almost.
A lot of it is tongue in cheek. So it's written. It's quite a lot of humour. Somebody's helped. I've not done all myself. Someone's helped me write that one. Because I know, having said that, I've done 4 books. I detest writing books. I don't enjoy it at all. But it's there. I'm trying to help. I'm trying to give back. It's not about making money. I give books away. If someone, I'll say it regularly on LinkedIn. If you want a copy of my book, tell me, and I'll just speak to Mr. Amazon, and he sends a copy out at my cost.
Yeah, the whole thing you're doing is really impressive. And before we'll go into podcast, and then we'll wrap up at the end, Craig. So, podcasting.
Yeah.
So you have started your own podcast, Know Your Numbers. I've been on as a guest. I'm really disappointed it's not been released yet, but by the time this is out, I'm sure I will be.
You know what they say, save the best to last.
Which means I'm not last. So talk to me about podcasting. Why did you decide to set up a podcast? And I'd be quite interested to hear, what have you learned from being a podcast host? Because I know I've learned a lot, even just in these few episodes.
It wasn't something I'd thought of. My colleagues Steve and Arthur, who helps me run Know Your Numbers from the marketing and the admin side, he said, we need to do a podcast. And I said no. It was like when I was first told we need to write a book. No, because I don't really like doing all these other. I much prefer spending my time with clients and doing Know Your Numbers groups. So I was just approached. Had a chat approached with someone from Go Radio. Went and had a chat with them, and I just assumed that Gary Muircroft would interview me and would bring on guests, and then he dropped on me, said, no, you're the host. So I said, all right, let's try it. So we did a wee test one day. Okay, fine. So we've got that. So that's been gone out. At this point, episode 4 has been released, but we've recorded 8 in series 1, and we've just finished recording another 6. So we've done 14 so far. And all I'm trying to do there is get out people's stories to try and help them inspire other business owners. Yeah. So in series 1, we were talking about the theme was from the tools to the boardroom, going from an operator to an entrepreneur. Yeah. So I want people to hear the stories of people who've gone through it and gone through adversity. You know, episode 1, Peter Archibald. I met Peter when he was in what was to become my back garden. He was in the digger. Okay, building my house. He now owns the business. Yep. So we talk about his journey, all his trials and tribulations, and there's some really great stories, including yours, in that series as well. Series 2 is more about growth and challenges. So it's talking about how businesses have grown. You know, one of the guys I interviewed, been working with him for about 3 years now. When I started, he was turning over $1 million. He'll now do 8 next year. Wow. Right? And the profitability has changed. So just going, how did you get there? You know, because it's, you know, how do you get the people, the funding, all those sorts of things. Yeah. So it's just trying to get that out to more people. And clearly there's an angle on it that, you know, if you like it and you hear what's been said, well, come and join Know Your Numbers. You know, it's. Yep. But it's good fun, but it's tiring. It's much easier being on this side because I just need to answer. Yep. I just need to bat back answers to your questions. You've got to listen to what I'm saying and work out where are we going next. So it is quite tiring, but it's great fun. Thoroughly enjoy it. And the team at Go Radio are absolutely fantastic as well.
It's quite refreshing. I was saying this to a couple of guys last week that was on, Brian and Barry. Like it's a rare occasion where you can now sit across from someone, have an hour's chat, no phone, no distractions. Yes. And you're actively listening, which we don't actually do that often anymore. I don't think we've got so many distractions all the time. I mean, even when sometimes we're on like video calls with our business partners or potential new business partners or clients, and they're on the video call and they're looking at their phone every 2 minutes, and it's like they're not engaged properly.
It's very true. I guess it's the society we live in now. Everyone wants everything instantaneously.
Yep.
And that's also why I really admire the people I really admire, and the people I really want to work with are the people who have come from nothing. Perhaps that's where I started as well. So it's the guy who's decided, I'm going to set up myself and I'm going to make this work. And if I need to work 90 hours a week, I'm going to do that. And if I need to go without, I'm going to do that. And I'll bring in other people and I'll grow my business to 10, 20, 30, 50 people, whatever that may be. That's the people that I really love working with, is the ones who just roll up their sleeves and get on with it. I'm not interested in the ones who don't want to take action or do anything, or are lazy, or they just, they've got there by some other means.
Oh, made that mistake. I mean, again, get back to restructures things. Sometimes we get people come to us in a desperate situation, and sometimes they show you a face that isn't actually their true face, because they're desperate, and the solution we've got can get them out of that dire situation. And then 3 months later, they revert back to type.
Aye.
We've seen that quite often.
And it's everyone else's fault.
Aye. And again, you mentioned red flags earlier. That's something we're getting better at as well. It's never perfect, because you'll
never get it right all the time. You can't.
No.
It's impossible. It's how you identify it quickly enough and move on, and just cut them out in some way.
Mm-hmm. So as we wrap up, Craig, it's been really great value so far. What would be what does the next few years look like? You mentioned a few things you're working on, but what does it look like for you? What do you want it to be? What type of people do you want to work with? You've kind of spoke some of this, but what does it look like for you?
I want more people to do Know Your Numbers. I want to go through that. I've got a number of clients I'm working with that we're working towards exits as well. So that's on a one-to-one basis. So we are planning to exit a number of businesses. We've got one actually that should exit within the next 3 to 6 months. So we're nice, because I've got a shareholding in that as well.
Nice.
There's another, I'd say 4 that will probably go between 18 months and 3 years. It's nice. And there's one potentially really big one that I'm not actively involved in anymore, that I'm told it will sell for $1 billion at some point.
Oh, wow.
Which would be nice.
Do you think you would still be doing the Know Your Numbers stuff if you got that big payout?
I'd still genuinely, I have no intention of retiring. I'm 54 now, and I want to keep doing this for at least another 20 years. But doing Know Your Numbers and doing it from somewhere warm and sunny. Yeah. I've had 3 approaches from the Middle East in the last 6 weeks, and there's something potentially quite interesting going to happen there. And who knows? I just be happy doing what I do. I've got the great privilege.
You can do it from anywhere, can't you?
In about 2 weeks, it'll be 15 years since I set up myself. Yep. Okay, and I have the privilege of working with some really, really good people, some people who've become close friends as well, who I've helped make money. They've looked after me. There's some others that are going to make an awful lot of money going forward as well. And as long as I can keep doing that and keep enjoying it, don't get me wrong, it's hard. I mean, last night I was working, after 9. I was up at 4 today. My Oura ring told me I had 2.5 hours sleep. Yeah. I don't really believe it. I don't know what happened, but you get some days like that. I've had to work the last couple of weekends pretty much non-stop because of recording and lots of other things that are going on. But I never complain, because it's my choice.
That's the interesting thing.
If I don't want to do it, then I don't do it.
People have this perception as well, sometimes of us at Monopoly, that because you're a mentor and you've got a social presence and stuff, that you just post a few things on LinkedIn and you don't do anything. Like, there's so much work behind that, and even us, after exiting businesses, after coming out of our different roles, you still do a lot of work. And I don't know about you, but it's actually ingrained in me. If I don't do a good amount of hours every day or every week, I start feeling almost guilty in my own self, and I shouldn't. No,
I never feel guilty in terms of any of that. If I like to finish early on a Friday if I can. Okay, I might end up doing some work on a Saturday. But what a lot of people don't see, and it's the same whether it's it's us or other business owners, they see the nice house, the nice cars, the holidays, these things. but they don't see the Saturday morning shift. They don't see you working at 8 o'clock at night or getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. These things don't just happen unless you're very, very lucky. Yeah, you need a bit of luck. You need to be in the right place at the right time. They happen because of hard work, and they happen because of making the right decisions. And that's often about bringing in the right people. As I've said, most business owners are really good operationally, right? They know their business. As I said, they know how to, fix roofs, build houses, provide a particular type of service. And I would encourage people listening to this to bring in people who have skills that you don't have, whether it's finance or marketing or just something different, and look at that as an investment. Bring the guys in from Monopoly who can do things that you can't do. They can help mentor you, they guide you, give you that experience, give you some funding or restructure things as that. And think of having a smaller piece of a bigger pie rather than I want all of this myself. And unfortunately, that's a big mindset in Scotland in particular, that people talk about giving away equity. You're not giving away equity. Someone is buying or someone is giving you in exchange. Jamie did a post about this early in the week, and I was making that same point. You're bringing in someone who's got skills and experience that you don't have to take your business that's worth X to perhaps take it worth 2, 3, 4, 5 times X. And if you don't have that mindset, well, you don't want to speak to them. I don't want to speak to them either. I want to speak to and help any ambitious business owner out there that wants pointed in the right direction. I will make time to have a chat with them.
Mm-hmm. No, Craig, there's loads and loads of stuff here that people can get value from. So as we wrap up, mate, if someone wanted to contact you, where's the best place for them to head to?
You'll see me on LinkedIn every day, Craig Alexander Rattray. And if you want to know more about Know Your Numbers, just go on to knowyournumbers.biz. And in the next couple of weeks, you will see a super duper website by the guys at TMD Media.
I'm excited to see that. We've got one built as well. I know the quality the guys have got is really, really good. And that's why I was talking about the rebranding, because I think you've got so much going on, mate. It's great to see. It's great to see more people getting to know about it as well. And we're kind of working in similar spaces, but we offer different things. And again, you've been doing this and helping people for so many years, and the results
so many years.
The results speak for themselves. But no, Craig, pleasure to have you on. Thanks. You very much.
Thanks, Stephen. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Till next time.